Hi, Ronnie.
Hi, Lynn. Give me just a second.
No rush.
There.
What is Ronnie's Fathom Note Taker? Is that just a recording?
That is an application that I downloaded on my local laptop that it's like an artificial intelligence notes taker.
Wow.
It will do a transcription and a summary of the meeting. So it's fairly accurate. I every once in a while it misses a key point, but generally it does a pretty good job. And it doesn't cost anything if I've got a Zoom license. So
it's another person according to the participants.
yeah, it's to let people know that it's recording.
That it's there. It's not in secret. Yeah.
Hang on a second. I'm gonna bump up my volume just
I don't know if you were planning to go beyond 6 o'clock, but I do have to leave right at 6.
That's fine. We might. It just depends how deep we get.
I have to get up to Longview by 6:30.
Right. No, I knew that. That's fine. Hi, Drew.
Okay.
Hey, hi.
I was in an earlier meeting with Jerry Sheng and Chris Goski related to the TCOG Energy Subcommittee.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, there's Jerry. Yeah. So I left a little bit early to do some other things, but hi, Jerry. Again.
Chris should be on.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jay.
Oh, you're good. I was gonna say Chris is gonna be on in a few minutes here.
That'll be fine. I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop. Interesting. It doesn't give me a desktop option anymore. So I will just share the agenda. Okay. And we'll go ahead and get started without Chris when he joins. Won't be terribly behind or ahead of him. The Unified Solar Permit, the planning board has customized the solar permit to fit more our village solar law. So I'm crossing that one off because we're not specifically using the same unified solar permit that the state is using. So I am crossing that one off. It has much of the information, but not all of the information, and is simplified somewhat for what is probably more residential than business type or commercial type installations. It does help cover commercial installations, but I think that the additional information that would be collected by the Unified Solar Permit is actually collected within the special permit process of going through a planning board and code enforcement. So I am crossing that off both here and down in CEC. So I am going to cross off all of that now. planning and infrastructure for bicycling and walking. Our Tompkins County Safety Action Plan has begun. We're basically well into status meetings. We have them every 2 weeks. And our current one-on-one meeting with Cambridge Analytics for our village perspective on our portion of the action plan is scheduled for Wednesday, March 27th. Carolyn Greenwald, myself, and John Courtney will attend that meeting to talk about potential projects we see forthcoming in the village. And we have a list, a Google document list that we've been compiling of the primary areas that we think would need to be addressed in future Safe Streets for All projects. So that will happen on the 27th. And as usual, the alternative fuel infrastructure I'm believing in, just because just to remind me that whenever we go into our annual shared services initiative within the Tompkins County municipalities, that this is discussed to see if we can come up with a good program that would do that. So for the Pledge Element 7 action items, I've kind of updated those. I had originally submitted our hazard mitigation plan under the climate vulnerability assessment and the climate adaptation plan, but I think through discussions with you, Jerry, we determined that it probably wasn't appropriate for those two categories. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's something we can explore later on once
Okay.
I'm done with the adaptation plans for the 2 towns that I'm working with. But yeah, the hazard mitigation plan would not cover all the requirements for those actions.
Okay, yeah, and that's good. So we will have to look to see if we want to do those independently. The hazard mitigation plan can be used obviously for the hazard mitigation plan action item under Pledge Element 7. So it is submitted. It already shows it's completed. All of our completed documents won't be evaluated until I think we attain the bronze level points, and we're about 20 or 21 points away, I think, from that. The evaluate policies for climate resilience. There's a climate smart resiliency planning, I guess, guideline that's offered, and we'll need to look at, do we want to perform that? It's got specific criteria that you address and determine if you have adequately planned for resiliency. I think it will build off of information from the hazard mitigation plan, but it's got to be transcribed over into the CSRP program. Does that sound right, Jerry?
Yes, that's how we've been doing it for the because it leads into the adaptation plan as well.
Right. That's what I thought. So the other two things, Drew, we got your Word document. Do you want to discuss that? I can bring it up. Give me a second.
Yeah, that'd be great. I should take a look at it too, on my side. So yeah, I mean, I looked at these two policies and looking at the webpage, as well as all the documents that they had for further research. I started there, and I just took a bunch of notes to kind of summarize what I read through, trying to keep it to maybe 1 to 2 pages. But the shade structures policy looks pretty doable to me, and it seems straightforward, reasonably straightforward in terms of it relates to public or shade structures on public owned places like parks and relevant for village buildings, etc. So it largely involves having a policy and also tracking what we do in terms of tree planting and shade structures. Now, I think we could probably get some credit for some of the work we've done with gazebos and other things that we've built so far.
Pavilions, etc.
Yeah, if I remember, I hope I'm not mixing the two policies up. I think I might be mixing up in my head. I think there was a look back period. I was thinking it was 3 years. That was the next policy though. But I think it's if we can kind of show that we have a policy is the main way to get the points here, and then kind of track what we've done. It looked like to get the 4 points. And IDing vulnerable areas, I kind of thought about which areas in the village, and probably not comprehensive, but senior, elderly, low income, high heat areas are urban paved. And Ronnie, can we plant trees along the side? Or do we have some right to plant trees along the sidewalk on Trip Hammer Road or between the sidewalk and the road?
Yeah, we do. We have planted them in the past. We've had some that died due to exposure to road salt during plowing. in the
Oh,
winter.
right,
We
right.
are looking at potential places to put in, if we can put in some new trees. But I don't believe anything is put into the budget this year. But we
Yeah.
can do that down the road.
Yeah, because that's certainly on a hot day that for people who need to walk to the store or get around that area, that I could imagine being a hot, long walk. So
I'm not
yeah,
sure we could, it is also an issue with, it depends upon the species of the tree,
Yeah.
but if they have the ability or the possibility of infringing on the power structure, power lines or anything that are above ground,
yeah,
we might not be able to plant them also. So
Yeah.
we have done it some in the past, but I'm not sure that they could have been truly called shade trees. They were trees.
right, yeah. So some other areas, some of the apartments behind the mall and shops on Trip Hammer, like the Gaslight, some in the VA clinic, as far as low income or people who are often kind of having to walk. I thought as far as land, besides the sidewalk area, land kind of near those apartments would be probably the Philip Dankert Park. And I don't know, having been there a couple times, I don't remember a lot of shade structures there off the top of my head. Maybe we could add some more in some of those areas. But I mean, as far as, covered gazebos, and I think in the notes below, we kind of talks about looking at documents, having shade structures, kind of making sure that water fountains, when people are drinking, have shade when they're drinking. Playground areas get shade, and that maybe covered benches, so that people playing basketball, whatever, they can kind of have some, whether they're either taking a break or just being a spectator, a place to sit down. And it also mentioned potentially a yeah, that's the next one too. It's kind of related, but maybe a water park. I think that was in the next one actually. But portable shade options for community events, umbrellas. Now, a lot of the stuff was from documentation that they pointed to, which came from Australia actually. So a lot of it focused on skin cancer, and I think that it's a lot hotter there. Obviously, the sun's more intense. But we have roof outdoor dining for some of our parks. But
Yes.
the areas we can expand that, maybe we can put that for our credit, but I think the main thing is to have a policy from reading this that would convey what we do on our public properties to make
Right.
sure that, and kind of take account of how much we're adding to
Okay.
get the 4 points is the main thing.
I see. Okay.
But I mean, it's pretty doable, yeah.
Yeah, I think that I know that we discussed it, maybe fall of last year. We walked through parks and talked about planting of shade trees. But yeah, we could probably come up with a policy that we already follow really realistically, is to, when we create a park, is we leave as many of the naturally growing trees there that we can, and then plan to plant trees, to restore trees once the park and its amenities are in place, to add more shade.
Right.
And almost all of our parks, if the size allows, pocket parks are the exception, we try to put in a pavilion so that there's a covered area for people to gather and have meals or just meet. So we do that too. So we probably could come up with some sort of a policy and get John Courtney to review it and help state what he just kind of does naturally when we have built parks.
Yeah, and I think oh, sorry, go ahead, Ronnie.
No, that's okay.
No, I was just going to say, I think if we had a policy saying that all the things that you just said that we do in our parks currently, and somebody's a policy saying that this is what we do, and we've done it at 90 to 100% of the time, that that would make it, easy, but also formalize it. And that would, maybe do a little bit extra that would, in a policy, that would kind of, sounds like that would
Right.
kind of get us to what we need to, but
Yeah. I was just
what
looking at
about, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying that, looking at the implementation, it's just a lot of the stuff we have done in the past without a policy. But we could create a policy that reflects what we have done and plan to do in the future.
Yeah. I think the only other thing that sounded, I don't know if there's much more room, or if I assume we've already thought about it, but any shading of our Village of Lansing buildings would be a cost-effective thing to do. As far as heating and cooling, like placing trees around the building to kind of do that would actually be cost-effective and kind of be a good policy.
We have done some of that too.
Yeah,
So
and
we could, same thing, very, very same thing.
yeah, and any greenway, if we have any greenway trails, maybe just mention to Carolyn if we have any, or I can too, if we have any greenway trails where we could add trees, that would be good to have in the policy, as well as what was I thinking here? Oh yeah. I think that might have been, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
I was just gonna say shade structures. You covered a lot of stuff, Drew, and it's great. As far as having a policy, but shade, as far as the village can provide it, but it strikes me that, the elephant in the room is the vast areas of asphalt in our village that are on private land that have no shade at all.
Right. Yeah.
And that just increases the whole heat bubble of our village because there's so much heat coming off those huge parking areas.
Oh, and that is one, I mean, that is, so I totally agree with you. That's what I thought of. But for this, it's only public. That is a hard nut to crack, and that would be a different law as far as, but for this one, it's just our publicly controlled or owned land.
Right. I understand that.
Yeah.
I just, there's, at some point, there's got to be a way to approach that. I know it's not part of this.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Thinking holistically about this issue.
Yeah, and so I guess the other thing is if there are parking spaces on some of the parks, like actually the name escapes me now. Is it Ned? No, not Ned Hickey. The one with the I can't. I'm getting all mixed up.
Marion Hartill.
Yeah, Marion Hart. Yeah, the one with the parking spaces. If we shade those, it'll be good for people getting in and out of cars. It also covers some of the pavement to reduce the heat reflection. And also covering the playgrounds. One thing that's brought in the Australian thing is that covering your playgrounds helps reduce children from getting sunburns and skin cancer down the road and keeps the playground from getting too hot. So that's another good idea, I thought. But I think covering the park benches might be good even for, I don't know, for the winter time of snow, but also just for that's, I wonder if I don't know if that's going to be extremely expensive or something that's kind of an easy thing to do, but that strikes me as something, if someone needs to take a seat, they could, when they're really hot, taking a seat in the shade would be nice. Yeah.
We can, a lot of our benches, when we can, I'm thinking of Marion Hartill in particular, were placed near shade trees, but there are some parks that don't have many shade trees. We could look at potentially planting trees near those benches so that they would provide shade eventually. The problem with trees around playgrounds is that there is a state and federal law on fall zones for children that are on playground equipment. If they fall anywhere off of the equipment, trees won't be there for for them to hit. So
right,
they have
exactly.
to be so many feet away, and in order for there to be shade, they've got to be a fairly mature shade tree where all of the limbs and the trunk are away from the playground equipment.
Yeah.
So that's a little harder to implement.
Right. So yeah, they had some other things mentioned like effectively like a cloth tarp or something or different structures, but you still have the post to think about. So I don't know about that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. A lot of times you can buy a canvas, think of it as a sail design that's above a playground, but it's usually fairly high and it's fairly big so that it expands out beyond the fall zone of the equipment.
Yeah,
but exactly. Those things have to be super engineered because high wind is going to just wreak havoc on them. They can really take off. I think the thing about Australia is that for a lot of the time, a lot of the year, they're under the ozone hole. And
Yeah.
it's a huge issue for them, which we don't have because we're middle latitude. But still, I mean, places like Phoenix and Tucson have covered playgrounds because it gets to 120 out there by June, you know, and kids who are preschools. I've visited preschools where the kids played outside under shade everywhere. But it's just, but that's the kind of heat we're going to be looking at in another couple of decades.
Yeah,
So,
based on the next section, it talks about how much warmer it's going to get. I don't see. I don't think Greek Peak is just going to be a water park from now on. But
if they have the water.
yeah, true. Good point. Yeah, I think just Ronnie, you mentioned the kind of the park benches that we've already put under shade. If we just kind of write that as a policy, which since we've already done a lot of it, it's kind of like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we get credit for what we've done.
Park benches will be installed near mature trees, existing mature trees that would provide shade. And
the thing about, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the thing about expecting shade to be provided by a planted tree is that you're going to have to wait 15 to 20 years to get any decent.
Yeah.
So erecting some kind of shade structure that's going to be windproof and can take the snow loading, I doubt that they're going to be cheap, but it's certainly something we can be budgeting for.
Yeah. It's something we could research. Is there something that we can find that would
if there are benches that are not, the benches that are currently not protected by trees, you could maybe have one of those little, you know, posts with the roof over it, and we can look at the cost at least. But I hope it's cheap, but I don't know. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is if you could get a fast growing shrub nearby that would, you know, on the sun side of, would at least in the late afternoons, you would get some shade. But as far as something that would arch over the bench, that would be hard to do without a mature tree.
And then you have the danger of falling limbs.
Falling limbs, yeah.
You know, it just that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't with trees.
That's true.
Trees can be wonderful, but you know they're a hazard as well as an asset.
So you'd have to be pruning them. You'd have to do that kind of thing. So yeah. So the good thing about this policy, just to clarify for sure, it seems to favor trees, obviously, because there's a lot of environmental reasons why you prefer trees, but you can do other structures. But then, you know, the costs aren't, you know, there's certain costs, things you might be more expensive in some sense than having a tree. Pluses and minuses, yeah. So just you can kind of keep it open-ended at least that way.
Right.
So just quickly, then that's that. I can go on to the next one unless you guys want to talk more about that one. But
let's move on.
Okay. Yeah. So the cooling centers is, you know, obviously still kind of the idea of providing relief for people in hot temperatures. This one seems a little more complicated to me in that, I mean, if we establish one cooling center and promote awareness, we get 4 points. That's pretty straightforward. The question is, besides that, and I probably using the right terminology, but that, you know, that community, I don't know if it's a community room, the annex next to the Village of Lansing, the main building, that strikes me as the most obvious one we could implement quickly, but I don't know if it has all the features in terms of, I guess also what's the capacity of that room.
Right.
Not very much.
Right.
Much.
Because if you don't use that room or some other property that I'm not aware of that we have, you'd have to coordinate with a private or nonprofit entity outside of the village, outside of that's another entity that's in the village but not the village government.
Right.
So
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a possibility we could do. You know, in some cases we could use the community room. We're about to put a new AC unit in that building this year, so that the AC is more reliable, and then have water available, bottled water. And the Shops at Ithaca Mall has the Lansing Community Center in it that we could always negotiate with them that if there's a heat event, to have something set up there too, where people could come into the mall and go into that community room in an emergency and have water and AC cooling available. And so we could kind of look at something where that would work. I don't know if we would have to coordinate that with the county health department for both of those to make sure that it was adequate for the need, the real needs of a heat event.
Ronnie,
Yes.
I'm a little confused because I thought that I was supposed to be looking at heat emergencies, but Drew, you've done a wonderful job covering it already. But I did do some searching and came up with, I went to the State Department of Health and County Department of Health, and it looks to me like the county will designate cooling centers, and they are probably making arrangements with things like the cinema, the large spaces inside the mall that we don't have access to, but that those would be designated by the county, so we wouldn't even have to worry about that. What I think is really going to be important for us is to find out, if we can, what those centers might be, and then do the publicity for the village. And it strikes me that we have a spring newsletter coming up. I don't know when Jody's gonna hit.
We have a deadline for articles, close of business March 27th.
Oh, that's soon.
Yeah.
Well, because, well, I'll tell you what, if it isn't in the newsletter, I think it should be on our website. Is it possible for me to share a screen?
Just a moment. Let me stop share. Then I'll say I can.
I mean, I'm sorry, Drew. I'm just jumping in on.
Because I did see, it was kind of interesting when I did the research. It did point, I don't know, it said that you could go to the Department of Health to find the cooling center sites. And when I went to it, it said page did not exist. So you
it doesn't say, it says that they don't have the information right now. But there is a page on what to do in a heat emergency for people.
Ah, good for you.
How to spot heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and which one is more dangerous and how to prevent them. So, you know, who's at risk, heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and all these links. And then there's, I don't know if I can share this, Ronnie. How do I do this?
There's a share down at the bottom of your screen. There's a share screen.
Yeah, let me bring it.
And you should be,
and
it will pop up and you
share
point
content
to whatever application you want to share.
Okay, screen, and what is that? It's not Google Drive. It's what I found on the internet. So it's on Google.
Share your browser and then look it up on the internet, and it will show us what you searched for or opened.
Website? Nope, it's not that. I may not be able to do this. Well, rather than waste time, I think I'll just tell you what I found. And Drew, we probably, sorry, we probably.
I just thought if you could copy the link and put it in the chat, then we could all.
That's okay. Yeah. Why don't I do that? All right, I'll just do that. It becomes
part of our notes too.
Yeah. So there's an extreme heat advisory from the New York State, ny.gov, the health. So it's from their health department. There's a come on. The village of Hastings on Hudson. That was one of the links that they recommended, was that they have hot weather reminders. So it just shows what another village is doing.
Okay.
So that, let me just put that back in the chat if I can get to it. I'll stick that in the chat. Anyway, so I think that there's a lot of public education we could do. Now, do we get points for that? I would assume.
Yes, in this we get 1 point for promoting social awareness about the existing cooling center, or if we or cooling centers, I guess, generally, even if it's not in the village, but how they would be able to access one in the county. It seems like that would.
I mean, we need, as a village, to know where our vulnerable populations live, where they are, and we have vulnerable. We come up on their heat index vulnerability map that I saw somewhere. Tompkins County and the village, or the village of Lansing has some areas that they consider part of the vulnerable areas, because I think there are apartments where senior citizens live. This is particularly relevant for seniors. So if we can get information out through either the newsletter and or the village website as to what to do in heat emergencies, because I don't think anybody's really been thinking about this in a concerted, organized way and getting the information out there.
No, I agree.
We have limited funds. We cannot put a tent over the whole village. You know,
No,
we can't shade
no.
everything. But we
No,
can
but if the
sure help.
county and state are going to have these locations identified, we just need to find out what those are
Yeah,
and be
so
able
then
to
we can share
communicate
those.
those quickly. And I'm thinking with the summer weather upcoming, it might be good to have this information available so that we can just share it and say, look, if, you know, we're not having an extreme heat event, but if you're personally, you know, feeling any of these symptoms, et cetera, here's what you should do.
Exactly.
And I know
And
that the county does that, and we just need to reinforce that through the village website.
so I get alerts from the county periodically. Maybe it's because it's through Siren or
Yes, it
something
is
like
Siren.
that.
Mhm.
So I think it would be worth checking with the county to see if they are going to be notifying the population that has cell phones. But there may be a fair amount of population that isn't very comfortable on cell phones, which I
Right.
mean, the really elderly people.
And find out
But
how they
at least
communicate
people,
to
yeah,
all
how
of
do
our
they
residents.
communicate?
Mhm.
Anyway, I will shut up and let you finish, Drew.
Oh, no,
'cause
I-
you're
Would you
job.
track down that information? Please track down that information to the best of your ability, Lynn, and just share it
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah,
And we'll
Yeah,
start
that-
compiling something to help as a vehicle to help our residents.
right.
Yeah, that's really great, Lynn, because it's interesting. This is very related to that. And the funny thing is that page, it sounds like you were able to find some of the stuff that when I did links here, they were dead in terms of a close-up map of the heat vulnerability at the county level. I linked on one of those, it wasn't there, and then also the whatever we were talking about in terms of existing cooling centers, I couldn't find. The links were dead, so I'm glad you found it. That's really
I know.
good work.
Well, there's a state map, county
yeah.
by county,
Yeah,
and you can poke county.
yeah,
And I poked on other counties and all kinds of information came up. I poked on
Tompkins,
Tompkins.
yeah,
Not
right.
we're just not there. And I don't know whether it's our health department just hasn't reported it to the State Department of Health. I don't know what the problem is, but you can't find out anything about the county by using this interactive map that the state has.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same frustration. I was like, well, that's not.
Frustrating.
Yeah. So I had to look at it. I had to look at the map and kind of like zoom in with my eye and be like, we're right around there. And yeah. Anyway,
Maybe someone at the county level has done that research and they
Well,
have
county health
links.
might know what's going on.
Right.
I don't know who I don't know who the contact is in county health now.
Well, the first person you could start with is Frank Krupa, and just
Frank.
if he would know who to point you to for the.
Well, then I can
information.
email Frank and ask him about how they're going to be notifying people in a heat emergency, what kind of information they're going to be giving out. Are they identifying cooling centers, and if so, where? And maybe we could know in advance what those cooling centers are, so we can get that information out to villagers before there's an emergency.
Right.
And, you know, it's the kind of thing you're going to have.
What the county does.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll
agree.
reach out to Frank. I kind of knew him when I was a county employee, but you know, that was quite a long time ago.
Yeah, he'll know who to put you in contact with. He's probably not the best contact, but he would know who would be.
Yeah,
He'll know who to.
Sorry, go ahead. Yep. I was going to say the only other option I didn't have time to do, but it said that when I got all these dead links, it said you can also contact by email the Department of Health of New York State to get the list of cooling centers, but it sounds like you already have it, or you could be able to get it easier than doing that. So let's go that route.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's good exercise because the village government should know where people go to cooling, what the cooling centers are in the county at least, and the fact that we can't easily access it, this is a good exercise.
Right. Links
It
are
is.
dead. We need to know and find the right link.
Yeah. So
many websites cross-link to something else and the link will change and they don't
update all of
that information. Keep it up.
Yeah. The state does have a page. And let me copy this. That actually has extreme heat advice. Starts out with need a place to cool off. It says find a place to get cool. Well, that's probably easier said than done if you live in a place that doesn't have an air conditioner.
Right.
You know. Okay.
But we can help identify places within the village for our residents.
Yeah. No, I don't see it.
So the only thing is, it's really important that obviously it's adequate AC. restroom facilities, drinkable water, and public transport, or at least very close to some of these populations that you mentioned. So we'll have to look at that when we see the list of cooling centers that are already out there and kind of make sure that, it's just, some of them, I think this might be bells and whistles, but it mentioned pet access, and I could see that some people might not leave their house without their pet, for one
Right.
thing.
That's pretty
I
common.
could also see private, certain areas might be like, oh, we're not gonna let the pets in here and all these,
Yes.
there might be some apprehension to it, so we'd have to confirm all these things. When we do give instructions though, I think mentioning to people where what cooling center this bus route's on, et cetera, and how Gadabout might get them there, et cetera, would be good.
Yes.
If they can't bring
All
their,
this would be good information. It
Yeah.
would be, it would be considered like an emergency route, situation where, if it's heat, how do people get to these places and then
Yeah.
get home?
Yeah,
So
and we
all of
should-
this would be good.
yeah, and if they're, I think also the hours, we should confirm, the hours, restroom facilities, drinking water, and, the pet access, et cetera, but
I would-
the mall would be great if that works. Movie theaters they mentioned. I would imagine Cayuga Center might help out, but I don't know how they could fit enough people. They've got other stuff in that
The
area.
mall has
the-
a lot of empty space, a
Right,
lot.
and with
Oh, yeah,
that
the
new
mall does,
facility
yeah.
there, the Cayuga
Both
Medical
malls.
could feed medical personnel over into the Lansing Community Room to help deal with heat emergencies inside. So
Yeah, yeah, so,
it probably will work out well with that
yeah, I just,
facility there.
it mentioned some, and maybe Jerry or that knows, as far as it mentioned staff, there might need to be staff on hand to do a head count or to kind of help manage needs or places. It also mentioned making sure that places for people to sit down, and that there could be funding through the CSC grants. And I don't, we would apply and give it, I don't know exactly how that would work with other facilities, but I imagine we could get more information on that.
Yeah, so if that's something you wanted to try to get money through the CSC grants through, it does require a 50-50 match, but it does give some sort of funding. That would be done sometime in the summer. So it's every summer, every year. There's the Climate Smart grants, and they're given out. So if this is something you guys want to start thinking about now, I don't think it would be too costly, considering you would really only have staffing on hand probably during heat emergencies. So I don't think it would be too costly anyways.
No permanent
Um,
staffing.
Yeah. And then I didn't mention before, but you were talking about the shade policy that I can get, like, yeah, you guys would only need to pass like a resolution if you already have gazebos and stuff done. So I have like examples of ones that other towns have and villages have done. So if you want me to send those your way, I can do that.
Please do.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I read through this, the seating I think would be for old, if you're having a kind of close to a heat stress, you'd want to have a place to sit down. So that would be good. And beyond that, I think the only the things that were kind of interesting looking at some of their research was the mobile cooling centers could be a way to reach people if we see some pockets where they're hard to get to. But the other way would be maybe thinking about installing a spray park at one of the villages, but that could be costly. But just as an idea to actually improve, community as well, that might be an idea going down the road as well.
I
So
mean,
that's,
like what they have at Stewart Park,
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
the
Yeah.
water feature. Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I know, but that would
Most
be,
of
that's
our
something we
parks
could,
don't have a water outlet either. And
Yeah,
the
so that might
reason
be
we
fine.
don't is for hygiene purposes. We don't know how we would maintain the water. For instance, water fountains, water spigots.
oh, we have no
and
water
stuff.
fountains either. Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
I don't think so. Yeah.
No, we
We don't
don't.
have,
And
yeah, okay. All right. I think that's really it for this. I mean, there'd be a lot more legwork. So I guess what I'm hearing is that, I guess the community room next to the main building of Village of Lansing would not, in your opinion, not really work as a cooling center. Because if we could add one, that'd be nice. But it sounds like it's not a good fit.
But
Is
you
that
know,
right?
we have the church on Graham Road. I bet they have a basement, church
Oh, yeah.
basement, always cold.
Yep.
I bet if
The
we,
temple on Burdick Hill,
yeah, the
perhaps?
temple, Tikkun V'Or, it's not that big, but I just think there's a lot of space in the village, but we just need to know whether it's been designated. And if it hasn't, how might we be able to have access to it if we would need it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get the information from the health department first,
Yeah.
because they may have already
Yeah.
done all of this legwork for
I'm
us.
sure that they've already been talking to places that are where cooling, because it just doesn't have information on cooling centers yet. And maybe they only
Right.
do that during hot weather. Maybe they don't publish
Possibly.
that until it's time. Just my
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, so getting that list would be good because as you said, these places may already be covered.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
So I'll see if I can get a hold of Frank
oh, that'd be
and
great. Thanks,
find
Lynn.
out who to talk to.
Okay. Then looking through these, this conserve natural areas, we have something in our Greenway committee, our Greenway plan rather. I will check.
To what extent, Ronnie, do we conserve the areas that have already been designated as unique natural areas?
Well, I think that we have something in our Greenway plan, and we may have something even in our comprehensive plan that
Yeah, because
talks about conserving unique natural areas and as much natural area within the village as possible.
yeah, we
So,
have the most notable natural areas that have been designated as such as unique UNAs are the lake cliffs along East Shore Drive that are in the village. So Bolton Point onward to the town line, facing the lake. But a lot of that is in the Bolton Estates, and they're now parcels that can be developed, but they're protected from development by our steep slope zoning law.
yes.
The other UNA that extends eastward from Esty Glen is the little creek that runs up along Burdick Hill. And I think it got extended up in there for a little ways. There's not much in there. There's a funky old cemetery in there behind, oh, dear me, I can't think of the people who live on the corner. They just built another house there. They've had some construction going on. But I think those are really pretty much, there may be some UNA areas up around behind the airport off Snyder Road, but I'm not absolutely sure. In which case, but that's not developable land anyway,
No.
because it's around the airport. So the area I think of most concern that's actually designated as a natural area is mostly in private ownership right now.
Okay. But I think we do have policies that say we try to plan and protect, plan for and protect. Naturally, I guess, what is it called?
Natural features. I mean,
No, it's not natural features, forever wild areas.
oh, we don't have anything like that.
I thought we do because we were talking about potentially a forever wild area in the upcoming beer development, that they were going to designate a section of that as forever wild. So I think it's part of our planning board process, and
Okay,
it's related to Greenway plan, a comprehensive plan. That's why I want to check those to see.
I guess
if we
I
have
wasn't
something
aware.
mentioned. Yeah, because it does come into play during discussions as to protecting. Well, we have the tree conservation law, et cetera. So we do have several things that are supposed to be working together to help protect as much natural areas and trees and so forth as possible.
Yeah. There is one other area I hadn't thought about, and that is Sapsucker Woods. The bit of it that's in the village, but that's already under protection.
Which one was that? I didn't hear.
Sapsucker Woods.
Oh, yes, Sapsucker Woods.
The
Yeah.
lab,
I was
what part of it
thinking
is in
that.
the village up
Yeah,
there
little
is already
corner of
under,
it.
it's
Mhm.
under their protection.
Right. Yeah. I think we had gone through these others, the riparian buffers. I haven't had a chance to check with the Cayuga, like the Quio or the Clown networks about this, but I know they've talked about these many times, so I'll try to find out what we have from them.
Hey, Ronnie, also, the culverts and dams, from talking to, Michael Scott, did you have any takeaways on, does that seem doable? He said it could be, but I'm trying to remember exactly. It was something like how much extra paperwork. I can't remember what I had to go back to the email that he had, but off the top of my head.
Okay.
What is it they want us to provide under that action item? For culverts and dams?
It was an inventory at least, and I think we're kind of doing that to some extent.
We had an inventory of
Yeah.
all of our culverts done several years ago for those as part of our stormwater requirements.
Yes, and Mike is having to do MS4 audits this
Yep.
year, and I think that when he completes that, we will have a list of all of the culverts and dams and stormwater retention ponds, et cetera.
Oh, that's great.
So
yeah.
we might have significant evidence for this this action item.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking through this. It's kind of basic. I mean, in a nutshell, it's like inventory it, have an inventory, and basically make sure that it expand the capacity where needed, and that have a plan for how to manage it. And so I think that without, might require a little bit more documentation. I think just skimming his email and so forth. The extra work would be formalizing kind of what he's doing and documenting it.
Documenting what he's doing. Yes.
I think essentially that's kind of what we're doing. It's right sizing the culverts, making sure that, so I think I think that's something we could do. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I think it might be possible with an MS4 audit, because that's their purpose, is to identify everything and then start determining if is there anything that needs to be increased or maintained or basically refurbished as far as retention ponds, et cetera, make sure that they're working properly. But culverts and dams should be part of that. I don't know if we have many dams, but we definitely have culverts.
No, I don't. We have well, we have retention ponds, and you can, whether or not they're actually dammed or that they have
spillover.
They're earthworks of some sort. They were built up. I'm thinking of the area up. What did we call it? Not Millbrook. No, I've forgotten the guy's name, but it's not that anymore. Beyond Lansing Trails, the other area that was going to connect with Lansing Trails, but never did.
It
was Mill something. Jeepers, I forgot. Millcroft. There we go.
Mr. Miller. Yeah, Mr. Miller.
Miller. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a pond in there that's sort of built up with a dam, but is there aren't we required through the MS4 requirements to make sure that our retention ponds are all cleaned out and working every year?
Well, we have to audit them every year, and then if we find issues, we have a certain amount of time to get those mitigated.
Yeah.
So first thing is the audit. Then after the audits are done, then we start looking at mitigation of any problems.
Yeah.
So I found a little bit. I was looking at another email he sent, and he said I guess the big question is, he's doing all this. He says, apparently we need a lead observer to verify the events unless he took the training to do so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the main, I think that he said would be.
And we would have to identify that third party that could do that then.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of finding out who. It might be Brent Cross.
Could it be an engineer?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, or potentially TG Miller.
Someone from TG.
Might have someone too.
Gandhi or someone.
Yes.
Given how much we're paying them, they could do maybe a pro bono.
Wishful thinking.
Maybe a discount.
Right, you're probably right, Drew.
Discount perhaps. Yeah.
Okay, I went through and marked to check with these, with Creo and Clown about
Yeah.
these three areas. So that's for me to do. Let's just basically get a one contact and say, we're looking at these areas. Can you give us any feedback that would help us with our evidence? So,
You know, the one just below that, the water smart landscaping, immediately what comes to my mind is more retention areas, not necessarily ponds, but rain gardens, where this is where the planning board could really come into play with maybe any large development that comes in that's more than an acre require rain gardens. I mean, we just suggest them, and they're hardly, I don't think there are any in the village. We had one at the old village office, but in order to build a new building, we had to dig it up. The more you can keep rain on the land, water on the land to infiltrate, the better off we are. We all know this, but we don't do a very good job of actually making it happen. It's to prevent runoff, and it recharges aquifers. The problem is we get rain now and it comes down instead of snow, and it leaves the land pretty quickly and heads to the lake.
yeah.
So we need to be thinking strategically, I think, throughout the village about where we can encourage keeping water on the land. Nobody wants to have it on the land, but that's exactly what we need to be doing now. I mean, this is the message from the Water Resources Council all the time, which is keep the water on the land as long as possible. So many good things happen. The water's so much cleaner by the time it actually does get somewhere if you keep it on the land longer. So that, I just think there's more we could do, especially with every new development. People want to put in a nice big lawn. Why not require them to put in a rain garden as well? Or some kind of retention swale or something. It could just be vegetated with grass, but at least it will hold water.
Yeah, some kind, we need to research what are some
Yeah.
water smart landscaping options that might be available to.
There's a lot of great stuff
developers
out
for commercial and residential areas.
Exactly. It's not that they're not work, but so is a lawn.
Yeah,
You can't just plant grass and walk away from it.
no,
Anybody's
no,
got a lawn
not for
knows it.
long.
Yeah,
Okay,
not for long.
okay, I'm going to skip, we're just gonna skip the other pledge elements right now. We've got a pretty good list of working action items right now. So we're gonna go into CEC planning. Let's see.
Remind me what CEC stands for again?
Clean Energy Communities.
Oh, okay.
It's
I
a
just
sister
saw the
program to
acronym.
CSC. They're almost
Right.
joined at the hip.
Why
So
aren't
as
they
we're working on one, we're actually working on both.
on the other?
Jerry and I do
Generally.
spend a lot of time together.
Right.
This is true.
Yeah, yeah. And for this one, we are in, we just kicked off another agreement with Solar Farms New York to start another campaign for
Oh, that's great.
residential and commercial customers. So I'm in the process of writing a newsletter article for April, and well, they're going to send me a candidate article so we can put it in. They've already got us a code that people can put in if they're interested in setting it up, and if they sign up, we get credit. And for each new sign up, the village would get $100. So
That's great. We're
and-
now into marketing.
Oh, yeah. And we, well, yeah, they don't do most of the marketing. We're
Yeah.
just giving people notification. And this is an old, yeah, we've already
Yeah.
discussed that.
One of the benefits of this type of arrangement that I have seen with other communities is that, you know, there is like, you are picking one developer to kind of push, which does kind of limit some of your options, but they do take care of a lot of the like direct marketing, direct mailing, and then they will keep their own list, which is really handy for tracking installations or signups for community solar. So I think that's yeah, basically And I think I said in my email, but if there's anything you want me to take a look at as far as that agreement, or if you want me to interface with Altus, just let me know, because I'm
Okay.
happy to. But I think, and then on the clean heating and cooling, similarly, as we kind of talked about at TCOG, hopefully we'll have some avenues through CCE. But I also should be coming into some bulk data of heat pump installs. So if I can get that and clean it up a little bit, might be able to find some additional heat pump installations in the village. And then again, if we've been doing the outreach, we can make the case to NYSERDA that the village has been really trying to get the word out there and connect with partners. So that's, I think, both the clean heating and cooling and the solar campaigns are kind of in a good spot. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot we can do to make them happen,
No,
faster.
no, all we can do is give it's up to the
Yeah,
customers to pursue that. All we can do is
it is.
say,
Yeah.
"Here, this
And
information," and
yeah, pursuing, again, our programs are joined at the hip. So pursuing climate smart the way that you have, just getting to listen into some of the considerations here for shade structures and I didn't know about, like, I worked at an after school for a long time. I probably should know that there has to be like a width before a kid can slam into a tree. But
yes.
that certification in climate smart is also worth a lot of points in clean energy communities, could help us get towards another grant. So, again, just as far as like, it seems like the priority is some of these climate smart actions, which I think is really great. And then when the time comes, we'll be able to parlay that progress into some CEC
Yeah.
type work. But obviously, again, in the meantime, if you do have any questions about anything sort of related to energy, I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Yeah, and so that's pretty, I know Lynn has to leave at 6, and I'm going to suggest
yeah.
that we've done a pretty good discussion. We've got some action items to go forward, and so we will just meet again next month and see how far we've gotten. And please feel free, everyone, share information with everyone on this list so that we're all kind of ahead of the curve and we can be ready for questions next time, okay?
Is everyone on the list in your emails, Ronnie, when you send them
Yes.
out?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fine. So
It's
as
a
soon as
group
I,
list. I just check it and all of you are on that list.
okay,
So if you respond to it, then it will get to everybody.
Oh, Ryan, next month, just so you all know, the next month will be if I attend this meeting, it'll be the last one. It'll come after I attend my last village meeting. I assume you still want me on that, Ronnie, or?
You can be, at that point, you can stay on as long as you like as a community representative, Drew.
Yeah.
If you want to, and you can drop off when you want to.
Okay, sounds
So
good.
you don't have to be a trustee. It helps to have you as a trustee, of course, but you're at that point, you will be a community representative, but you can still provide valuable input.
Okay, great. All right.
Okay.
So I'll see you next month. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
All
Drew.
right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. And
thanks,
I guess
Ronnie.
I'll see you next week. I mean, next
Okay.
month.
Next month. Okay. Good to see you all.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Guys.